Shalom, Apostle Harkman back at you with the truth, giving all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Ba'Shem Kakudash. And I'm going to entitle this video, Jewish Scholar says Indian tribes are Israelites. And it's not just one Jewish scholar. There's a couple of people mentioning this, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of jump around a little bit. But anyway, it says, okay, this is from an article, and I don't know if I did a video on this already, but if I did it before, I'll do it again. Anyway, this comes through the spirit of me watching a video that the elder, up and coming elder Yashawamba put up at GMS Dallas, dealing with I believe it was 800 stones found in Puerto Rico with Hebrew, ancient Hebrew writing on it. And I just finished watching. It was a live stream of the GMS DC. They were doing a live stream, and they were even mentioning the so-called Latin tribes, Indian tribes. So, it made me kind of... Oh, what I did was I took the video that Elder Yashawamba did, and I uploaded it on my page. Because, I saw the whole video. It was like 25 minutes long. Anyway, this article is entitled Native Americans and Jews, the Lost Tribes episode. It says, an all too forgotten historical debate by David Kaufman. And I'm pretty sure I've read this article before, and I believe I did a video on it. But anyway, like I said, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but what I'll do is if I remember, I'll leave the link in the description box. It says in the 8th century BCE, the Assyrians dispersed the kingdom of Israel, giving life and legend to the lost tribes. Now that's talking about, in particular, there was a breakup of the tribes after King Solomon's son Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and it was prophesied by the prophet Ahijah that he tore his clothes and gave him 10 parts and said, these 10 parts are going to go with you in essence. And what happened was, when they had that split, which Jeroboam was an Ephraimite, and Rehoboam was a Judite, of course, which is the son of Solomon, the grandson of King David. So he sat as king. So there was only one king in Israel at the time. But anyway, this happened to the spirit, and later in history, you had the Assyrians that take over the kingdom of Israel, or the northern kingdom, as they call it, scholars call it, and they put them in captivity, in bonds, in tribute under the king Shalmaneser the fifth. And I think it was during that time period, I think his father was still living, then he came in on the scene. But you got to go into the history. And I also did a video on that years ago. This has to be maybe, I don't know, 2015 maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it says these Assyrians dispersed the kingdom of Israel, giving life and legend to the lost tribes. The repatriation of those lost tribes eventually became an integral part of the Jewish and Christian messianic dream. So you have these scholars, Christian scholars and Jewish scholars and messianic scholars, mostly Edomites. They knew that they all read the scriptures, the Old Testament, so they knew that there were lost tribes that were taken from their homeland into Assyria. And as you read on, you go into the Apocrypha, and the question is, where did they go? And it makes sense that they came over here to the Americas, which is spoken of in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, 40th verse on down. Anyway, it says, to get into the fact that the king of Assyria took down the northern kingdom, or the kingdom of Israel, is spoken about in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. So read that whole chapter during the reign of King Hoshea or Hoshai. It says, and there have been lost tribes speculations about numerous discovered populations. So these scholars, Jewish scholars, Christian scholars, Messianic scholars, they're saying, well, where these tribes are? We know that the tribes, were taken down, but where did they go? Because they know that they're here on the planet, because the future prophecy speaks of the tribes coming back together. It says, one, the most fascinating and unfortunately forgotten such discovered discussions centered on the Native Americans. So the sports talk is about, can these people in the Americas be, one of the tribes? It says, how can American Jews respond to this? Why and how did Jews credit or discredit it? Some believed and others not. They're not the Israelites. They're not the descendants of the Israelites, because the original tribe of Gad were a dark group of people. Some of them were woolly hair, some of them were curly hair, some of them were straighter hair, but dark. And they became lighter through mixing with Esau. You got these Edomites that they'll go to a powwow and they'll say that they're Cherokara because their mother, their mother on their father's side, or however you break it up, he has 5%, Native American in him, so he has just as much right as any actual Indian. So Esau wants to be in everything. He says, what did these theories signify about American Jews, a Jewish agenda, and the anxieties? Okay, it says a theory is born. One of the first books to suggest the Native American lost tribe theory was written by a Jew, the Dutch rabbi, scholar, and diplomat Manasseh ben Israel. In the hope of Israel, 1650, Ben Israel suggested that the discovery of the Native Americans, a surviving remnant of the Assyrian exile, was a sign heralding the Messianic era. It says just 1 year later, Thomas Thorogood published his best-selling Jews in America, or probabilities that those Indians are Judaical, meaning they're Jews. They go back to the Israelites, the Hebrews. It says made more probable by adaptations to the former conjecture or conjectures. The lost tribe idea found favor among early American notables, including Cotton Mather, the influential English minister Elias Boudinot, the New Jersey lawyer who was one of the leaders of the American Revolution, and the Quaker leader William Penn. If you go to Pennsylvania, there's, I believe it's in Philly, there's a big statue in downtown, and that's William Penn. It says the notion was revived after James Adair, which I have his book, a 40-year veteran Indian trader and meticulous chronicler of the Israelites features of the Native American religion and social customs, wrote The History of the American Indians. I happen to have that book, containing an account of their origin, language, manners, religion, and civil customs. Even in that book, he says that they call on Yahweh, but I believe they say it a little bit different, which is similar, close to the word Yahweh, and they use the term for fire. They use the term Ash, and several other terms, in the Hebrew. It says in 1775, even Epaphras Jones, an American Bible professor, engaged the theory in 1831, claiming that anyone conversant with the European Jews and the Aborigines of America, which are Gad, Reuben, will perceive a great likeness in color, feature, hair, aptness to cunning, disposition, and roving, etc. It says religious connotations. Some of the writers were interested in Native American history, but most of them were just interested in the Bible. Indeed, the lost tribe claim should be seen as part of a general 19th century fascination with biblical history. So, when you speak about the tribes, you have to, bring up the subject of these people over here in the Americas. It says explorations of the Holy Land, flora and fauna, the geography of the Holy Land, the life of Jesus the man, were very much in vogue. A close identification among some 17th and 18th century Americans with the chosen people of Scripture helped Christian settlers see their colonization of New England as a reenactment of Israel's journey into the Promised Land. There's a book written called Lost Tribes in the Promised Land. I'm kind of jumping around. It says it has often been remarked that the people of the United States come nearer to a parallel with ancient Israel than any other nation upon the globe. Hence, our American Israel is a term frequently used, and common consent allows it apt and proper. It goes on to say, a curious incident that drew considerable attention and proved, at least to some, that Native Americans had ancient Israelite origins unfolded when tefillin or phylacteries were discovered in Pittsfield. In the phylactery, you look up the word phylactery or tefillin. It's the Lord spoke about it in Matthew the 23rd chapter when he spoke about broaden your phylacteries. That's the you go to Deuteronomy the 6th chapter, and it speaks about putting the law in between your eyes and between your hand, and you're wrapping like leather around your arm. Anyway, so that's what they found. They found phylacteries. So that was more evidence that these people could very well be among the tribes of Israel. It says were discovered in Pittsfield, Massachusetts in the early 19th century. Their discoverer wrote that that this formed another link in the evidence by which our Indians are identified with the ancient Jews, meaning the Israelites, who were scattered among the face of the globe. And that's in Matthew 21:24 and various other scriptures, Isaiah 11. It says, and to this day remain a living monument to verify and establish the eternal truth of Scripture. So, this truth is coming out. Let me see what this says. Prominent Jews respond. Around the time of the Pittsfield Tefillin incident, Mordecai Manuel Noah, the journalist, playwright, politician, and Jewish American statesman, began spilling ink about the subject. Noah wrote a play, She Would Be a Soldier, or The Plains of Chippewa, 1819, that resolved the tension between the Yankees and the British by identifying the Indian Great Spirit with the God of the Bible. It says Noah's ideas about Jewish native affinities grew in a distinctly political manner when he invited Native Americans to help settle Ararat. The separatist Jewish colony he hoped to establish on Grand Island on the Nigeria River around 1825. It says Noah's writings on Jewish natives came to their full expression with the discourse on the evidence of the American Indians being the descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, 1837. The work documented a host of theoretical, linguistic, ritual, dietary, and political. So I guess Gad at one time didn't eat pork, but then they went off, started eating dog. It says parallels between Jews and Native Americans. Most importantly, he identified several essential character traits shared by the two people, all of which is highly laudable. For Noah, the conflation of the Indians and Jews sanctioned the letter as divinely ordained Americans. So, I mean, you can read the rest of the article. Let me jump down. I'm jumping around. It says, employed philosophical proof to undermine the stone's authenticity. So it speaks about this particular stone that's found here in the Americas. It says he rejected my connection between Jews and Native Americans, though it's notable that he bothered to engage the story at all. Isaac Lesser, a traditionalist, cited in the favor of the lost tribes theory. Reviewing the relics in the question, the Occident Lesser newspaper and concluded the sons of Jacob were walking on the soil of Ohio many centuries before the birth of Columbus. Remember, these are Edomites. These are so-called white people, so-called Jews. It says, implication, from a historical and scientific point of view, the Native Americans' lost tribe claim is clearly, Nar-Ris Kit. Yiddish for foolishness. Okay, that's a Yiddish word. They said, so you got some of these people say, well, that's foolishness, that's bullshit. And so, but even a brief elaboration of it, who was making it and why, who was refusing it or refuting it, and why reveals important insights about American Jewry. Because if they all admitted it, they would have to say, well, wait a minute, then the original Jews or the original tribes of Israel were dark-skinned people. So, then they have to look at themselves and say, well, why are they white? It goes on to say, Jews responded to the lost tribe claim about Native Americans in sermons, plays, public statements, scholarly works, and popular writings. The critics' responses were more understandable from the perspective of the reform and science. The theory is flagrantly nonsensical. That's what they're saying. But you're going to find out that they're the Israelites. It says, accepting Native Americans as ancient Israelites held several, sometimes mutually exclusive implications for American Jews. So these so-called Jews would be interested in that, because it would ask the question whether they are connected or related to these Indians. And if the Indians of America are in fact Israelites, then what about these other nations up in Canada? Well, you would have to include the Indians of Canada and South America. What about these South American people, the islands, Central America, South America? That they would have to be of the tribes of Israel. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave you real quick with, let me see if I can bring it up. Bear with me for a minute. Now this computer want to run slow. Okay, almost there. Anyway, this is from the Apocrypha, Second Ezra, the 13th chapter, and around the 40th verse on down. It reads about the tribes coming over here, to a new region. But I'm having trouble trying to bring this up. But I'm just kind of paraphrasing, Oh, I found it. Wait a minute. I found it. So let me get that right quick. I'm almost there. Okay, it says, I'll start at the 39th verse. And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, these are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hoshea, which is king whom Shalmaneser the fifth, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But the other land was Assyria. And so, but they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen okay, 41st verse. But they took his counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. The heathen are the other nations. Assyrians would be considered heathen. Anyone outside of Israel would be considered a heathen. and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow pass of the river, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they would pass over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Asareth, which Asareth means another land. That's in, I believe, is Deuteronomy 29 and 29, if I'm not mistaken. Matter of fact, let me go to that just to make sure. Deuteronomy 29. Let's see if it's the 29th verse. I'm sorry, it's not 20. It's not the 29th verse. Let me try this. I haven't gone through it in a while. Going to it in a while. Okay, let's go down. Okay, it's the 28th verse. It's a 28th verse. I'm going to start at the 26th verse. For they went, Deuteronomy 29 verse 26, for they went and served other gods. That's why they said, let's go to this land so we can keep the laws that we didn't keep when we were back in our own land. And that's why you were cursed, because you broke the laws. You followed other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, of whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. It says and Yahweh, and he also gave them curses that were not written in the book. AIDS, herpes, the Ebola virus, just to name a few. It said, and the Lord rooted them out of the land of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day. So they're in this land in the Americas. Another land is the Americas. And that word, let me try this here. I got to find a word now. Okay, I'm going to take the word Asarath, and there's an article on it by Edomites to tell you that that's talking about America. Okay, this is from the Jewish Encyclopedia. This is information from the so-called Jews, not us. Not something that we, as they say that we make this stuff up. These are actual so-called Jews. This is by Morris Jethro Jr., Kaufman Kohler, two so-called Jews. This is from the Jewish Encyclopedia. And let me go right to the point. Okay, let me start from the top. The name of the land beyond the great river, afar away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of the restoration, according to Ezra's 13. They got it as 4 Ezra's, which I read it out of 2nd Ezra's 13 verse 45. It says Columbus identified America with this land. Columbus chimed in. He said, there's a scene in one of the two movies that were made about Columbus where he, and if I can find it, I'll bring it up to you. I'll put it in the description box, where he actually mentions the book of Esdras. It says Columbus identified America with this land. It says Christopher Columbus, translated by Dr. C. Gross. I mean, that's all I pretty much have to read. You know, I got right to the point. And anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom, and it's on to the next one. You know, this truth is just coming out, constantly coming out, man. This is you know, before the Most High, you know, takes his world out and just sets up another world for the children of Israel, he's going to bring out this truth, and he's going to use his men to do it. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom, and it's on to the next one.